Wonderful, wonderful. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Um, just give me a hand raise or a hand clap. How's everybody doing today? A thumbs up, uh, celebration emoji. If you want to come off mute, you can say you're doing all right. Well, we made it. We're all here. I'm going to do where are my, okay, I got a thumbs up from Chanel. Thank you all for joining. Richard, welcome. Thumbs up from Jeff. A celebration emoji from Janet. It's all good. Welcome, welcome to our second Empower to Serve module, breaking up with sodium, hashtag empower change. And so I want to thank you all for joining us today. I understand it's late. We all probably had a busy day, but we're never too busy to really take a look at our overall health and wellness and see how we can potentially improve our overall health and wellness. And, you know, breaking up with excess sodium is definitely a part of that. Of course, a high sodium diet is linked to hypertension and other chronic conditions that lead to cardiovascular disease and unfortunately, sometimes untimely early death. And so that's what we're trying to prevent here, figuring out how we can eat better, you know, look at the sodium in our diet and kind of make modifications that will serve us better moving forward. So again, thank you. My name is Michael Randall. I'm a Senior Director of Community Impact here at the American Heart Association. And I want to thank all of our partners, all of our clinical partners, Janet and Henry Ford Faith Nursing Network, and everyone that's working with us in this project. It's extremely important. And I thank you all for joining us through this journey. But before we get started, of course, welcome to our second module, Breaking Up with Sodium. Today, we are going to go over understanding how sodium affects your health. We're going to learn about some common sources of sodium or salt. We're going to be able to identify steps to help reduce your sodium intake. And then we're going to have some closing thoughts covering Your Voice Matters and some additional online resources. But again, I really want to thank you all for joining us. This meeting is being recorded, so a version of this will be available on a recording for all of our patients here that are joining from various clinics, but also for individuals who aren't able to join us tonight. We're going to be able to send out this recording. But before we start, everyone on the line should have received a text message with a survey link. The survey is very, very important. It's an opportunity and a way for us to get your feedback in terms of your knowledge and your comprehension around sodium and figure out how we could potentially create these modules to better suit your needs. So, Janet?
Can you drop it in the chat?
I absolutely can drop it in the chat. For sure. So
because I know that my people that are on did not get the link because
okay.
I didn't give you their email address.
I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. Yeah, you probably shouldn't get
it would be nice if we could see faces.
Yeah,
would
anybody
it be nice
wants
if you can put your camera on? It would be nice.
Yeah, anybody that wants to endeavor to put their camera on, please do. We definitely want to encourage you to do so.
Okay, Janet.
Hello. Welcome. But yes, thank you, Janet. So yes, I'm definitely gonna put that in the link for us to access that throughout the presentation. But without further ado, I definitely want to turn it over to Chef Alaina. She's going to get into the subject matter for this evening, as well as provide a spice exploration. We don't want to call it a demo. We really want to look at some ways that we can season our food in a healthy way, really avoid that sodium where possible. So without further ado, Alaina, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael.
So once again, hello everyone. My name is Alaina Randall, and I am, like Mike said, I am a wellness coach, a vegan chef, and a health ambassador for the American Heart Association. And so I'm really excited to be here with you all this evening to explore the topic of sodium and really looking at excess sodium and how that impacts our health. So first, we're just going to pop and look at some of these. We're looking at some of the common sources of sodium. We're going to look at the effects of sodium. And then we're also going to identify steps to decrease your sodium intake. So just looking at this very first slide, sodium in your body, we want to remember that our body actually needs some sodium, right, to work properly. And too much sodium actually causes your body to hold onto water. So this puts an extra burden on your heart and your blood vessels. And then most of the sodium we consume is in the form of salt. Okay, next slide, please. So reducing the amount of sodium in your diet can actually help you lower or avoid blood pressure. So like Mike mentioned early on, high sodium intake can lead to high blood pressure and other illnesses that we will look at. And high blood pressure is the leading cause of heart disease and stroke. Next slide. So in addition to high blood pressure, too much sodium puts you at risk for an enlarged heart, headaches, kidney disease, osteoporosis, stroke, heart failure, kidney stones, and stomach cancer. So this is definitely something that we want to give our attention to so that we can avoid some of these common illnesses. Next slide, please. So how many of us know somebody who is suffering from high blood pressure? Can you guys give a head nod, a hand? Yes, right? So many of us do. And it's actually very, very common, unfortunately. 9 in 10 Americans consume too much sodium. Sodium added to foods outside of the home actually accounts for more than 2/3 of total sodium intake within the US. And more than 70% of sodium actually comes from processed foods or foods that are found in the restaurant. Next slide, please. So when we look at high blood pressure rates between ethnicities, we find that high blood pressure among African Americans are among the highest in the US as well as worldwide. So over 50%, 57% of non-Hispanic African Americans have high blood pressure. That's a majority of the African American community, right? Among Hispanics, 44% have high blood pressure and 41% of Asian Americans. So this is something that is common to many communities, especially our communities that have diverse individuals. Next slide, please. So we're looking at some of the statistics. We're understanding that sodium is negatively, high sodium levels negatively impact our health. And so the question is, how much is too much? And I should have asked the question before we jump to this slide to see if you guys had an idea, but I forgot. So we'll keep moving. But remember, if you do have questions, feel free to ask them, or you can keep them to the end of the presentation. Because we want to be able to make sure we're answering any questions that you do have. So the American Heart Association recommends that we consume no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. And unfortunately, most adults consume more than 3,400 milligrams of sodium a day. So we actually want to move toward an ideal level of sodium, limiting no more than 1,500 milligrams a day. So even cutting back by just 1,000 milligrams can improve blood pressure and heart health. So, many of us may think, okay, well, I hear all of these numbers, all these thousands of milligrams, but what does that mean? What does that look like? And that's something that we're going to go over this evening when we talk about looking at package labeling and really understanding what that looks like. Next slide, please. So now that we understand the recommendations, let's take a look at the common sources of sodium. So what's the difference between salt and sodium? Well, sodium is a mineral that's essential for life. Sodium helps your body work. It helps to control your body's fluid balance, and it helps serve nerve impulses and affects muscle function. So it is an essential building block for our bodies. But salt, table salt, is actually 40% sodium and 60% chloride. Salt and sodium are commonly used interchangeably. And to find out the amount of salt in a food, we really need to make sure we're reading labels and we're looking at the content where it says sodium, and there's some other hidden terminology that is used as well on packages. Next slide, please. So if we look at common table salt versus something like a Himalayan pink salt, there are quite a number of differences. So common table salt has been purified, and that's through a process of recrystallization. It's 97% sodium and it has 2% additives, as well as like what we looked at in the previous slide, being 60% chloride. So it has that as well. But the biggest thing is that it's been depleted of its natural minerals. All of the minerals are depleted from table salt. It also includes compounds like anti-caking compounds, and it likely contains iodine. You know, you can get iodized salt, you get non-iodized salt, and it also has been fluoridated as well. But when we look at pink Himalayan salt, it actually contains 84 essential minerals, which is required by the human body. So it's retaining a lot of the natural minerals that have been depleted from iodized and from common table salt. It is 85% sodium chloride and only 15% trace minerals. It has a good source of magnesium, in which 80% of all individuals are deficient. It promotes a healthy pH balance of the cells. It helps to regulate blood sugar levels, and it can also help regulate the body's natural sleep cycle. So this is just a chart. If you look online, there are actually many charts that detail some of the differences. There are many salts, alternatives as well over the counter. There's table salt, pink Himalayan salt, there's Celtic sea salt, there's regular sea salt. And you can just look at the differences and find the one with the highest mineral content. If you're adding salt to your foods, you want to have the best form. Next slide, please. So I want you guys to think of others while we go over this slide and shout them out at the end if you think of some. But these are some of the common sources of sodium. These are 6 popular foods that can add high levels of sodium to your diet without you even realizing it. So some of these include bread and rolls, pizza, sandwiches, cold cuts and cured meats are really high in sodium, soup, burritos, and tacos. So I just want to ask a couple people if you can think of any other foods that may have hidden forms of excess sodium. Any thoughts?
Takeout food.
Takeout, exactly, yes. So that's a great point. And like we mentioned earlier, restaurant food is often higher in sodium. Good, thank you. Anybody else?
My favorite, potato chips.
Oh, yes. I love that you said my favorite. Yes, and the thing is, it's a favorite across America, right? And so that is definitely high in excess sodium as well. Anyone else? Any other thoughts?
Crackers.
Maybe one more. Crackers, that's true. Yeah, crackers. So, and the common thread among all of these is that they're processed packaged foods, right? So some other things that I thought about would be packaged seasoning mixes, Frozen dinners and frozen pizzas, those would all have very high numbers, have excess sodium. And so that's something that we want to be aware of. Next slide. Okay, so where does the sodium we eat come from? So like we just mentioned, most of the sodium we eat comes from packaged, processed, and restaurant foods. You guys hit it on the head when we were talking about you know, different ideas and different popular food items that have high levels of sodium. So processed foods are packaged in boxes and cans and bags, things that we find overwhelmingly in our grocery stores. Packaged foods are ready to eat, they're convenient, you know, things that you can grab and go very easily. And then restaurants, they often rely on some processed foods in their food prep. And that's something that many times, you know, we don't think about when we go to a restaurant. Most of them do rely on packaged and processed foods to make the food that they're preparing for us. Next slide, please. So some more common sources of sodium. We need to look at the fact that more than 70% of sodium comes from these types of foods. Some foods contain sodium in their natural state, which is something we should consider as well, like cantaloupes and potatoes and milk. They contain sodium, but usually in smaller amounts. Bok choy, beets, all of these foods already have naturally occurring sodium. And then of course, when we add salt to food, we're increasing the sodium intake as well. And this was something that was interesting to find, but sodium is also in things like baking soda, and of course, like we mentioned, seasoning blends. When we're looking at breads and cereals, all of these things, we want to make sure that if we're consuming things from the store that's packaged and processed, that we're reading the label, which we're going to get into next, to make sure that we understand just how much sodium we are consuming throughout the day, to make sure we're not going over that limit. Next slide, please. Okay. So when we are looking at a nutrition fact label, there are many different things, and some people are really intimidated, and so they just don't turn it over. They don't look at the packaging at all. But it's very important to make sure that we're reading the facts because I guess manufacturers have become creative in their wording to say that something is healthy when it actually is not. So they can say, well, we'll get into some examples down below, but you know, they can change the wording to make it seem like it's something that's healthy when it's not. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at the label. So of course, you look at the calories, you look at the serving sizes, because for instance, if you look at like a little tub of ice cream, they're not going to say that the serving size is 1 tub of ice cream, you know, the little personal sizes. They're going to say it's like 3 or 4 servings. And so if you look at that and you say, oh, okay, well, this is only 400 calories for the whole thing. It's like, no, it's actually 4 times 4, you know, and that makes a huge difference. And so we need to take that into consideration when we're looking at sodium as well. So for instance, you know, the example that we have on the screen here, the serving size is 2/3 cup, which I don't know, most people don't eat 2/3 cup of anything. It's a very small portion size. But it's 8 servings per container, and each serving has 7% of your recommended daily dose of sodium. And so we want to make sure that we're taking that into consideration. So we want to take note of the serving sizes, and then look at the milligrams. So, you know, instead of looking at the percentage, just kind of keep a little running tally in your head as much as possible with the packaged and processed foods. We're looking at the milligrams, right? And then of course, looking at the ingredient list. So we want to remember, does anybody remember what the AHA recommended daily dose is for sodium, like we mentioned earlier? Anyone?
Is it 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams a day?
Okay, you're close, you're close. So it's 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams. So that was really good. You were very close. And then of course, if you're male or female, women need to be on the lower end of that as well. And then remember that we're shooting for 1,500 milligrams, but they kind of said, hey, but if you can do 2,300, that's good too. So 1,500, 2,300 milligrams is the goal. Next slide, please. So there are many hidden sources of sodium. And this is just a list of some of the different names that sodium goes by on packaged foods: monosodium glutamate, sodium bicarbonate, sodium nitrate, citrate, glutamate, lactate, phosphate, and the list actually goes on. It's very interesting. And then remembering that baking soda and baking powder also contain sodium is key as well. So that's why we really have to look at the label instead of just looking at the ingredient list. We want to compare both to see just how much is in that packaged or processed food. Next slide. So when we're talking about reducing your sodium intake, we're realizing that it's extremely important to read the nutrition label of any food that you buy, including healthy foods with clever packaging. So when buying prepared and packaged food, always check the sodium content on the nutrition facts label. We want to compare the sodium content of similar products. Sometimes we can, somebody used a cracker, for instance. And with crackers, it's cool because you can, if you're just looking at crackers from the sodium perspective, you can get one like that's salt-free or low sodium, but still that does have sodium. You still need to read it because it still may be high. But we can choose the cracker that has less sodium in it than the other. And we need to do that by comparing products, right? And then you also want to choose the items with the lowest sodium. Exactly. All right, next slide, please. So understanding food packaging can be very interesting, and often, we are responsible for our health. So we have to make sure that we're doing our research and make sure that we're reading the whole label when it comes to these foods, because it is clever, and manufacturers want to sell their food, so they're not going to say unhealthy across any food item. So just understanding that every phrase means something different. So for instance, sodium free means that it has less than 5 milligrams of sodium, where very low sodium means 35 milligrams. Low sodium means 140 milligrams. Next slide, please. In the next slide, we're going to see that there's reduced or less sodium, which means that it has 25% less sodium. If we look at light, which is for sodium reduced products, that means it's reduced by 50%. And light in sodium means it's reduced by at least 50% per serving. So they all have, it's very different. And I don't want you to be confused. I just want you to remember that recommended daily dose, focus on the foods that are packaged or processed, and then, try to eliminate them little by little, add more fresh fruits and vegetables and all different things to your diet that we're going to mention in a couple slides. And don't be discouraged. Just make sure that you're making sure that you're looking into how much sodium is in each food item that you're eating. Next slide, please. So one of the 4 sodium limits applies depending on the food category. So up to 140 milligrams per label. This is when we're looking at, let me step back a little bit. We want to look for foods that have the American Heart Association certified label on it, right? And so we can be a little bit more trusting when we see that. And then depending on the category of food, it will either mean that it has either up to 140 milligrams of sodium, it has 240 milligrams of sodium per label serving. It just really depends, but it does generally mean that it's a heart healthy food. And then you still, with that will give you some reassurance. And then adding to that, you want to make sure that you are reading the label. Next slide. So when we're looking at forming a healthy diet, we want to follow an overall heart healthy diet that emphasizes a variety of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, whole grains. If you eat dairy products, you want to make sure that it's low fat. If you eat poultry and fish, you want to make sure that it's skinless. Nuts and legumes, which will be like all of your different like beans and lentils. I really love red lentils and brown lentils. There's so many different things you can do with that. Non-tropical vegetable oils. So this is a big one because in the health community, many people have adopted using things like coconut oil. But that is something that the American Heart Association speaks against, making sure that we're using non-tropical vegetable oils in our diets, because it does have a different type of fat, which is not healthy for our heart. Limiting saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, red meat, sweets, and sugary drinks. Those are all encompassing general healthy diet tips. Next slide, please. So when we're cooking at home, here's some quick tips. We want to resist temptation when it comes to using less salt when we're cooking and seasoning. I'm going to give you guys some alternatives tonight. And then try it first. Make sure that we're not just dumping salt, especially table salt, into the food before we're tasting. If you look at different cooking shows, like I love to look at like MasterChef, you see that they're constantly tasting the food. We should constantly be tasting just to make sure. And often, you know, a lot of the food, especially foods that have naturally occurring sodium, you may need way less salt than you think. And be free, try salt-free seasonings. There are many, like an example would be a Mrs. Dash seasoning that has herbs and different things all together, you know, herbs and seasonings that does not have salt, and it's absolutely amazing. You should give it a try. And then of course, be adventurous. And that's something that we're going to talk about shortly with our spice exploration part of this evening. So in addition to herbs and spices, you can use vinegars, fresh lime or lemon, which is something that many chefs use. You'll see them in the beautiful videos. Take a dash of lime or lemon juice and it's just, oh, beautiful. And that's actually, you know, it has natural sodium. And that will add flavor instead of salt and really enhance the taste of each dish. Next slide, please. So what do you do when you're eating out? So I know that we mentioned that restaurant food often has high levels of sodium, hidden levels of sodium. So one thing that we always do in my family, we make sure that we search before we go. So lots of restaurants and fast food chains have nutrition information on their website. So you can look that up and see if they do have nutrition information. Then if not, you can just read the description. You know, you kind of get an idea of some of the processes that the restaurant uses. And you can see, you know, is this a restaurant that uses more processed food than not? That would be something to look into and to consider. Look for clues, look for healthy designations or symbols on the menu. And a lot of places are adopting this. They'll have like a little leaf next to something that's vegetarian or vegan, or, you know, the little different signifiers. So that's definitely helpful as well. And then have it your way. Request that your dish be prepared without added salt or high sodium ingredients. And this is especially helpful for people who are struggling with high blood pressure, and they know that they are starting to see issues with this. But even for somebody like myself who has not struggled with high blood pressure, I have to make sure that I don't consume too much sodium as well, so that I don't struggle with high blood pressure. It is a cycle that we need to be aware of. Next slide, please. So we also want to make sure that we are considering the medication that we're taking. So if you have high blood pressure, ask your healthcare provider or your pharmacist about the sodium content of the medication, right? And this includes over-the-counter drugs. A lot of people don't think about that. So we read the labels before buying over-the-counter drugs. Ask your pharmacist if there are any low-sodium alternatives available to medicine, any medications that you may be taking. And of course, you always should be working hand in hand with your primary care physician, especially if you are suffering with any of these ailments. Next slide, please. So let's help take action, right? We want to continue to take the pledge and hold companies accountable and give them credit when they make improvements, right? We want to commit to telling food companies and restaurants that you support their healthier options, because at the end of the day, these companies want to make money. And so if no one's buying their healthy options, they may just say, oh, forget it, And so we need to make sure that we are appreciative when they do create healthy alternatives, and then also hold them accountable when they are not. And so one of the links you can go to, you can visit sodiumbreakup.heart.org/take-the-pledge, and that will help take action when it comes to these companies. Next slide, please. So I just want to remind you that your voice does matter. We all have the power to make a difference by speaking out for policies that help build healthier lives and communities. So you can also join You're the Cure today and be among the first to know when a major policy initiative has passed, when your help is needed to advocate for the healthy future of America. So you can text EMPOWER to 46839 to join today. All right.
I just want to double click on that, on these both of these slides. It's very important. American Heart Association, we really believe in, making the healthy choice the easy choice. And we all know in our society that is extremely difficult. Like we have all of this information, and then right when we go outside, we're inundated with advertising, and we're inundated with fast food restaurants and gas stations and all of these things that will really make the unhealthy choice the default choice sometimes, right? And so we do a lot of policy and advocacy in Lansing as well as in Washington, D.C. to help you all make the healthy choice the easy choice. And so a lot of those things include, excise taxes on sugary beverages, right? Making sure that we have healthy kids menus for school lunches and things like that. So we can start kids off on the right health trajectory when they're little, right? And so, I want everyone on this call to be empowered to join the pledge. I'll put a link to these things in the chat. Your voice matters, right? And we really believe in building a culture of health, and it starts with you all. So, don't think that your voice doesn't matter in these spaces. They absolutely do. So I just wanted to double click on that, literally.
No, thank you. Thank you, Mike. If you can, and then go over these last couple of slides as well, just talking more about Empowered to Serve and wrapping up before the spice.
Sure, absolutely. And so these health modules that you're hearing, they're really designed to be led not only by professionals, but also by community members. And so, each one reach one. These are train the trainer modules that we can make available to all of you. And so you can go to empoweredtoserve.org. All of these health modules are available to you. Feel free to download them, read them, present them at church, present them at work, present them at school, wherever, right? And we're gonna, help build a culture of health and really help our society become more healthy. It's gonna take all of us, right? And so, really take advantage of this website. There's a ton of education and resources, not only for you, but for your family and your community. So, definitely take advantage of this, this awesome resource that's available to you. And tell us what you like. Email empoweredtoserve@heart.org. This is an actual email. People are actually looking at this email. And so we really use your feedback to design these health modules. So again, be empowered, reach out, your voice matters to us. And so I think that's it for the presentation. And now we're gonna have spice exploration. So Chef Alaina, oh, but we do have do you want to take some questions? We're making good time right now, so maybe we could take a few questions before we get into the exploration. Janet, you have your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to impress upon everybody that next week on Wednesday, 6 o'clock, I will have a hypertension self-management support group. So if you want to drop in, I put the link in the chat for you to RSVP and come in, and we will have just cool conversations about hypertension self-management. If you need, Michael, you've sent them blood pressure monitors, right? If they don't have them, correct? Or...
Absolutely. So if you haven't gotten one is on the way. So connect with the clinic that you got enrolled through the to this program, and we'll make sure we have a blood pressure monitor for these. Are Bluetooth capable monitors, so they do come with an application where you can track your blood pressure. But please, please, please utilize the support. Janet from the Faith Nursing Network out of here in Ford and her team are extremely knowledgeable in this space. And we need community, right? We really need community now more than ever to support one another through our health journey. And cardiovascular health is a proxy for overall health, right? And so we're talking about hypertension, but we could talk about overall health, right? Overall health and wellness. And Janet and her team, they know what they're doing. They're very seasoned, no pun intended. They're very seasoned, not the seasoning demo, in this space, right? And so please utilize these resources to support. But thank you for
I put the link in the chat if they're interested in coming next week.
Absolutely.
All right, Chef Alaina, I had a question. Do you
Yes.
find that people, I find that people just naturally add salt to their food without tasting, but there are folks who, do you have any types of suggestions so that they know that they're only getting, how many teaspoons would you say would be in a daily average of salt that they should have, and how would you recommend that they?
There's a chart. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's actually, Mike, can you look for that? Because there is a chart that shows on the AHA website how many teaspoons or it's actually teaspoons per day. You think you can grab that really quick?
And I was just going to offer a suggestion. Perfect. If you like salt, however many teaspoons it is, put it in a salt shaker, and once it's all done, you're done for the day.
I like that. I like that. That's actually a good idea. Instead of having like a salt shaker that's full, to the brim with salt.
What your daily allowance is, and once you're done with that, that's it for the day.
That's good. I like that. What I would add to that is, definitely make sure that you're undercutting it even a little bit. So I don't remember what the chart, it wasn't a many teaspoons. It might've been like 6. I don't know. I hope Mike can find it before we're done here. But if you do something like that, make sure you're undercutting it. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. So reduce your salt, 5 grams. Yeah. Wow. That's a little bit. So does it say how many? I can't really see it from here. 1 teaspoon is 5 grams. So how does that translate? There's one that shows the milligrams, but pretty much it's not much, right? And something that we need to remember is that, thank you, Mike. Yeah, something that we need to remember is that there's sodium in foods naturally too.
I got it.
Perfect. Okay, can you put that up?
The dietary guidelines recommend no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium, which is about 1 teaspoon of salt.
1 teaspoon. Oh, that's different than what I was remembering a chart. I thought it was more than 1.
Yeah,
that's rough.
That's 1 teaspoon.
That's so.
That's 2,300 milligrams.
With that in mind, yeah, that really makes us want to really rely more heavily on our spices, which is something that we're going to get into tonight. Or, grabbing a lemon or a lime wedge, putting that over our food, because 1 teaspoon. And if you think about it, if you're making a recipe, right, and you put 1 teaspoon in the recipe, as long as you're not the only one eating that pot of chili, you know, then it's being divvied up. But accounting for that throughout the whole day, and then if you're eating processed food for lunch, you know, or maybe for breakfast and lunch, that's definitely something to be concerned about. Yeah. Wow. Good
Awesome.
question. Any other questions before we jump in? Or comments even?
Those other salts like the Himalayas, how does
Mhm.
that, as far as taste is concerned, is
Oh,
it similar to?
So to be honest, actually, now that I've transitioned over to either pink Himalayan salt or Celtic sea salt, it tastes better.
Wow.
It's not as salty, like, you know, you think of that salty taste, right? That regular, just the table Morton's iodized or non-iodized salt is very strong, and it actually makes you crave more food, right? The salt makes you crave more fat and sweet, you know, it's kind of this big cycle. And with this, I get it. You see how huge this is, right? You can buy this, it'll last forever, and it tastes better. I feel like the food actually tastes better. It has more depth of flavor. But of course, I'm incorporating that along with these herbs and spices. So yeah, I think that when you transition over to a more healthy diet, everything starts to taste a little bit better. Your palate elevates and is kind of cleansed in a sense. So yeah, I would say give it a try. Mhm. And one thing I will say too about like the pink Himalayan sea salt, you can find it almost everywhere. I mean, I remember years ago, it wasn't something that I saw in every grocery store. This is something that I got this from Costco, and I mean, who knows, this will probably last 6 months even, you know, and it was like $5. So it's not that it's more expensive, and it's just as accessible now. So I do see it in a lot of most stores now will have that as an option. Mhm. Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if there are not any other questions at this time, make sure that you think about if you have any more by the end, and we can definitely answer those. Mike, if you can pull the PowerPoint back up so that and just go to the end. There's a few more slides that will show a couple things for the spice exploration, and then a spice recipe. You can do that. That would be great. And while Mike is pulling that up, I just want to go over a few of my favorites. So before I jump in, I have another question for you guys. So what is, I need to hear some favorites before I tell you guys all of my favorite seasonings and herbs and spices. Let me just hear somebody shout out a few favorites.
Lori's.
Lawry's. I'm glad you mentioned Lawry's. That's great.
I like
Growing
Spike.
up. Spike.
Garlic.
Okay.
Love
Mhm.
garlic.
Okay. Great.
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon. Very nice. Yes.
Dill.
What was that again? Say it one more time.
Dill.
Dill. Yes. I love dill. Absolutely love it. That's very nice in like salad dressings too.
I like
Any
that
others?
McCormick chili right there.
Oh, oh
Rosemary.
no. Rosemary. I love rosemary. Yeah.
What about the onion powder?
Great. Yeah. Onion powder. I love it.
Who
Okay,
said,
good.
who said Lars? I know, was that Janet?
No, it wasn't Janet. It was another.
Yes, it was.
Who said
was it
Lars?
Janet?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I see. I can't
I
see
don't know
from here.
what, I don't know
That's
what
all
they
right,
put.
Alaina.
I
Why?
don't know what they put in that Lars, but
Yeah.
It's the bomb.
man.
It's
Come
the
on,
bomb.
Janet.
So listen. Okay, so let's get into Lawry's then, since that is
Are the slides up?
favorite.
Can you see the slides?
Yes, the slides are
Okay.
up. We can see them. Thank you. So before we jump into what I had prepared, let's talk about Lawry's really quick. So Laurie's is a favorite, right? And if we look at the ingredients, I mean, the main ingredient of Laurie's is like salt. It's salt. It's seasoned salt, and it is table salt, right? So it doesn't have any minerals, and it's not really full of herbs. I'm pretty sure there's sugar in Laurie's as well. And so when we're looking at things like that, and I am not judging because I loved Laurie's. My mom would put it on our French fries growing up, and it was bomb. You know, I still have not quite gotten that same taste back because Laurie's is a very specific taste, right? But when we're looking at our health, right, things like Laurie's and other packaged seasoning mixes, they're just really not helpful. And it's something that we want to make sure that we can try to replicate in a healthy fashion by using spices and herbs and seasonings that don't have the additives, that don't have added sugar or table salt to them. And so if you look on the PowerPoint here, I have some things crossed off. This wasn't necessarily to point out, this is all McCormick. I'm not trying to point out McCormick. But what I am trying to show you guys the difference between getting packaged seasoning mixes and what they entail and what they include versus something that is just 100% that herb. So like for instance, you know, if you look at thyme, right? Thyme, rosemary, all of these really aromatic herbs, that is very different than grabbing something like this, which is a chili mix. If you turn it around, for instance, if we use this for an example, the McCormick original chili, right? And McCormick is not the worst brand out there. The first thing that I look at when I'm reading the package labels is how long the ingredient list is. And generally, a rule of thumb, you want to have short ingredient lists. If you have something where the ingredient list is this long, you know that it's unhealthy generally. You should be able to understand 98% of the words that are there as well. So like if we talked about earlier, all of the different terms for sodium, there's terms for many things. And so we want to make sure that you can understand the words in the ingredient list, that it's a short ingredient list. And then you want to look at the first 3 ingredients, and those are generally what the product is made most from. So for instance, if you look at like some of these noodles that are, they say, I don't remember exactly what it'll say, but it'll say like made with spinach or something like that. And spinach is like the last ingredient. It's like, no, these are pasta noodles and they put a dab of spinach in it somewhere and they're able to use that on the label. So we want to look at the first 3 ingredients. This chili packet, the ingredients are chili pepper and other spices. So if they don't specify the spices, that's something to be a little concerned about. They're not specifying, they're not telling you what, they're just saying and spices, and many things can fall under that category. But it says including cumin. Then the very next ingredient is wheat flour. Why do we need flour in our chili? No, we don't really need flour in our chili. We're not trying to eat bread. We're trying to make chili. So there's wheat flour, and then there's niacin, iron, thiamine, folic acid, onion, salt, and garlic. And then if we look at the sodium intake, first of all, who in the world will only use 1 1/3 tablespoons in a whole pot of chili? But it's 4 servings for this one thing, which many people would dump like the whole thing, depending on how much chili you have. The sodium is 15%, which is 340 milligrams. So there's definitely worse ones. This is another example of something we would want to avoid. This is like a cool Creole seasoning, which I love that, but the first ingredient is salt. So salt, red pepper, black pepper, chili powder, dehydrated garlic. It has anti-caking agents, and then milk, soy, and wheat. We don't need wheat. We don't need soy. We don't need all of those different things in our seasoning mixes. This is another example. this just one that says spices, if we wanted to specify what spices they are. So just going over that really quickly. If you go to the next slide, before we move on, does anyone have a question?
This is Vicky's son. I just wanted to point out Vicky Hudson's comment about accent salt.
Hmm.
So her comment says, I love the accent salt. I had to let it go because I find that it's not good for us, but it gave your food good flavor. What do you think
Okay.
about that?
So accent salt, so can you explain, or maybe Vicky, can you explain what accent salt is? I actually haven't heard of that.
That's the brand I think the brand is called Accent. Am I correct?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, so it's a brand. So is it a specific, I guess we would have to look at the ingredients, right? But if she's saying that it's something that she had to give up, or did you say Vicky or Vicky's son? It's kind of
It's Vicky Hudson.
okay, Vicky Hudson. So
Yeah.
that's something I'd have to look into because I haven't.
Oh, I remember that. So
Do you remember? Okay.
Latanya got us a visual aid.
Okay.
So I do remember my mother getting that when I was little. I remember all the little vegetables on there.
Okay.
And is that a type of Laurie's, or is it a more of a, what they got in there?
I think it's just basically accent salt.
It says it's
Oh.
MSG.
Yeah, the
MSG.
MSG. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay.
It
So
just
that's
says it's a flavor enhancer.
okay. Okay. So yeah, that is definitely, thank you so much for bringing that up. And if there are any other comments in the chat, please let me know as well, because I can't see them from here. But that is definitely something that we would want to, remove from our diets as much as possible, because it's not, it's just not healthy. If it's just MSG, that's table salt is a little bit worse even than table salt. It's
Yes.
just sodium. So that's why we want to replace it with some of these herbs and spices. So if you look on the screen, I have some recipes for you guys, and Mike has them as well. Hopefully he can send those to everyone so that you guys have them. But some popular foods would be like chili or tacos. So I chose a couple recipes for you guys to make your own seasoning blends. It's also more cost effective because you buy seasonings, you only have to buy them once every 4 to 6 months, and you can make many seasoning blends with them, right? And so if you look at this one, you have a chili seasoning blend. You can use just a little bit. What I would suggest is that you can make the seasoning blend without using any Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan salt. And then if you need it at the end, you can add a little bit, right? Making sure that you're measuring it to make sure that you don't have too much. But generally you would have your Celtic or pink Himalayan sea salt, you have onion powder, and you want to make sure that it's 100%. There's a couple, like you don't want onion salt or garlic salt because onion and garlic salt has salt in it, right? So you want onion powder, garlic powder, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, and chili powder. And then if you like to have a little bit of a sweet hint to your chili, which I always have a sweet tooth, you can use something like 100% pure maple syrup. You don't want to use like sugar, you don't want to use regular sugar or table syrup, like you don't want to use pancake syrup, just 100% pure maple syrup. You could add that, and it makes a really delicious chili without the additives, without the excess sodium and the wheat and additives, right? And then if you go to the next slide, you can go to the one last slide, Mike. There is a Mexican taco blend. So I don't know how many people do like Taco Tuesday, but tacos is definitely a staple for us, we'll make like a plant-based taco. And once again, you can start by omitting the salt, adding all of the seasonings first, and then adding salt if you need it. You use smoked paprika. You can use regular, but smoked paprika is life. And if you can find it, it's really, really exciting. It adds even a deeper depth of flavor to your food. Smoked paprika, chili powder, cumin, onion powder, garlic powder, and cayenne pepper if you like a little hint of spice. So these are very simple mixes. Like if you look in this bowl right here, I don't know if you can see, you can just put your seasonings in there. You can swirl it around. It's so beautiful seeing all the different colors. But you literally would just measure your seasonings, mix it together, and then you can put it like in little mason jars. You can put it in the Ziploc bag and label it. And it'll just be ready, just like these little packages that cost $1. I mean, this would probably cost, I don't know, this would cost cents, you know, in comparison, because you've got all of this left over, and you can make many, many more things. So those are some of the go-tos that I use. Some of my favorite, and I challenge you guys to find your favorite seasonings. It might be a little bit of a transition, switching from like packaged or like Lawry's to making your own. But once you find your favorites, you are just good to go. So my favorites, of course, for a salt replacement, I would use pink Himalayan sea salt, but we also use lemon and lime. We use like rice vinegar. You can use apple cider vinegar. That's even healthier to flavor food as well. Smoked paprika, really, really, really love smoked paprika. Garlic powder and onion powder on top of using fresh garlic and fresh onion as well is absolutely delicious. I love thyme, rosemary, and there's one more that's green, and you think about it this time of year, if you think about like Thanksgiving flavors, absolutely amazing, really earthy. Rosemary is really kind of earthy and sweet. I love that. Garam masala is actually a delicious mix of different spices that's used traditionally in like Indian culture, and you can make lots of curries. I love anything over a brown rice, and so I'll use a lot of this and things like that. You can pair it with like a coconut milk or like any type of heavier milk that's lower in unhealthy fats or higher in healthy fats. But this garam masala you can also make on your own. So when you're reading the ingredients here, it is a mix of cumin, coriander, black pepper, cardamom, cinnamon, red pepper, nutmeg, and allspice. And so this is a blend that I bought, but it only has those ingredients. It's very rare to find your own a seasoning blend that actually has their own, and it doesn't have additives, right? But this is something that you can make or you can buy that's delicious. And then I also really love curry powder. And curry powder has coriander, turmeric, garlic, cumin, and chili pepper, and ginger. So absolutely amazing. There are so many, and I just challenge you guys. I know we're running out of time, but I challenge you guys to find some seasonings and some spices that you enjoy and play around with it, put it in different dishes, and try to find ways to omit and lower your sodium intake. Thank you so much.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you, Chef Alaina. Let's give Chef Alaina a hand, physical hand or a virtual hand or a fake emoji hand. There we go, Vicky. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Patricia. Awesome demo. So we
Thank you, Alaina.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Wonderful.
Awesome,
you.
awesome, awesome.
Appreciate that.
Well, that concludes our presentation for this evening. I just want to thank everybody for joining. There will be a recording of this demo made available to each clinic. So I'll make sure all the clinical leads, I'll make sure I get this recording to you all, Janet, as well. Remember, we do have our hypertension support group led by Janet starting, well, it already started, but it's going to be next week, next Wednesday, right, Janet? Yes. Awesome. So
Yes.
the link to that is in the chat. So before you hop off, make sure you copy and paste that link and join as well. Great support group. Yes, our next, I want to give you all the next date for our next module. I believe it's going to be December 9th, no, 16th, maybe the
It's
2nd.
4th or the
It's
2nd?
the 2nd, yes. So our next module is going to be Eat Smart with fruits and vegetables. So we're going to talk about really how to incorporate more fruits and veggies in your diet to get that overall optimal cardiovascular health. It's extremely important to get that nutrient density within your diet. So we're going to take a deep dive into that. But that concludes our evening. Thank you all for joining, and I will see you on the 2nd. Have a happy Thanksgiving, a healthy, low sodium Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time. Thank you all for joining, and take care.
Take care.